Hello everyone and welcome to Galactic Grooves episode number 6. My name is Chip Boaz and I'm a jazz bassist, and usually around here you'll hear me playing all sorts of music on all sorts of basses, but this is the time when we talk Star Wars, because every day can't be all about that bass. So hang on, we are going to talk about Yoda and his love for music, as well as the High Republic and Andor Episode 6, and so much more. So are you ready to get your groove on? What a week in Star Wars. Oh, episode 6 of Andor. Wow, so much to talk about there. We'll be getting to that soon, but we also had some other revelations around one of my favorite things around music. So I really wanted to talk about those before we dive into Andor today. The first thing that just blew my mind was the fact that Yoda, that's right, Grand Master Yoda, the ultimate Jedi, was a musician, just like me. Can you believe it? So, if you saw The Empire Strikes Back, and I hope you saw The Empire Strikes Back, that's my personal favorite Star Wars movie. Oh, man, I could watch that one over and over. But if you saw The Empire Strikes Back, then you saw Yoda on Dagobah. And that's where he hid out after his defeat at the hands of Emperor Palpatine, to make sure that there was a Jedi presence left in the galaxy while the evil Empire took over and ruled with the dark side of the Force. Now, Yoda had a lot of time there on Dagobah, right? I mean, there was no one to talk to. He could meditate, but you can't just meditate all day, right? Or he could, commune with the Force. He could talk to Qui-Gon, I guess, during that time here and there. But, Qui-Gon's one person. There's only so much communication they could have, right? So he needed something to do during that time. Now, if you look closely in The Empire Strikes Back, Yoda is wearing a necklace of sorts that at the end has a small, it looks like a little square, but it's actually a musical instrument. This is called the blistle. Now, we've known about the blistle before. If you looked it up on Wikipedia, the blistle would show up and it told us it was a musical instrument. So, okay, we knew Yoda was carrying a musical instrument around his neck. But we found out this week that the blistle was actually an important part of Yoda's time on Dagobah. It helped him center himself and kind of maintain his mental health during this time, because you got to imagine it couldn't have been easy with all those years on Dagobah. So he would play the blistle to clear his mind and keep himself steady. That's pretty deep, and that could mean a lot of things. Is this a Jedi thing? Is this something that's part of the Jedi training where they use music to kind of find some peace, to find some inner peace, to connect with the Force, maybe? I could see that, when you're playing jazz and you're connecting and you're in the song, everything else just kind of fades away. It is this state of somewhat of a meditation. So I could see how Yoda and the other Jedi may have used this. So were all the Jedi musicians? That's what we want to know, right? That's the question everyone is asking, or at least I am. So I wonder, so did Mace Windu play the guitar? Who knows, right? Maybe Kai Adi Monday played the clune horn, right? I mean, that's a Star Wars instrument. Maybe. Did Obi-Wan Kenobi play the piano? You know, we saw Obi-Wan's kind of little place in Tatooine while he was hiding out watching Luke, and I didn't see a piano, but maybe he had a blistle too. I mean, he had somewhat of a similar situation to Yoda, right? He had to hang out for all those years, and it seemed like he didn't have a whole lot of company. I think he had more company than Yoda. I mean, he could hang out with the guys that cut fish with him, or monster, or whatever that meat was that he cut. But whatever the case, there are people around there. But I bet he had to center himself. He had to play some music, just like Yoda. I want to know. I need to know more. If you have thoughts on that, hey, are Jedi musicians? Tell me what you think. Send me a message, chip@chipboazmusic.com, and let me know what you think. Oh, that was big news. Another piece of, well, let's actually go back just a minute here. That news came to us as part of the New York Comic-Con Lucasfilm Publishing panel where they were talking about new books coming out. I guess there's a book coming out called 100 Objects that has the blistle as part of that. So that was it. I tried to zoom in. I couldn't read the whole page about the blistle. So maybe there's more. Maybe there's other Star Wars instruments. I can't wait. This is going to be a must read. They announced some other cool books and comics as well in that panel. A book coming up that I'm super excited to read. It's called Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade. It's going to introduce us to a new Inquisitor who was a former Jedi who turned to the dark side. So we're going to learn more about that whole time and what it meant to be an Inquisitor. That's going to be pretty cool. Can't wait for that one. There is a comic coming up focused on Sana Starros, who was a character introduced in the comics and definitely had a connection to Han Solo, had a connection to Dr. Aphra, and I just love how these characters are coming out of other places than the movies, other places than the TV shows, and we're getting these deep, rich characters. Now, Sana Starros' relatives, kind of older generation, show up in the High Republic. So it's really interesting. She has an important lineage. I would love to learn more about her. Can't wait for this comic. There's some cool stuff coming out of Lucasfilm Publishing, so very excited about that. But let's get back to music, because I had another revelation this week. So last week I talked about the High Republic and was talking a little bit about the background on Phase 1 and that Phase 2 just started. So I started the first Phase 2 book in the High Republic series called Path of Deceit. That so far is pretty good. I'm not too far into it yet, but I'm really enjoying it. Again, it's kind of a time jump back, so we're learning new characters, new situations. Although there are some familiar planets and situations I'll talk more about later once I've read the whole thing, but I'm super excited. Now, I also mentioned last week that when I read these books, I'm an audiobook guy. I have a commute to get to work, and I listen to audiobooks to pass that, especially Star Wars audiobooks. So I'm listening to the Path of Deceit audiobook right now. And one thing I love about the audiobooks is they have a soundtrack. It's like watching a movie. There's music in the background. Most of the Star Wars books use our familiar John Williams theme, so we all know and love. And that is super cool, and that is something that we, know and love. for the High Republic, it's totally different music. This is not John Williams. Now, I will say that it leans on the kind of John Williams sound a little bit right there. We hear things that were definitely taken inspiration from John Williams, but it's different music. Now, I have scoured the internet and I cannot find who is writing this music. I need to know who is the High Republic composer. There's so many great composers in the Star Wars universe now. I mean, for a long time it was all John Williams, right? But we have Kevin Kleiner, who did the Clone Wars and does a lot of the animated series. We had Natalie Holt, who did the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. We have Nicholas Bertel right now doing Andor. There's so much good music out there, so many good composers. Who is this? Who's doing the High Republic? Now, music is such an essential part of watching and listening to Star Wars that, I'm emotionally attached to that music. I think a lot of people are too. We need a soundtrack for the High Republic. We need to know who's writing it. We need to grow that emotional attachment in the same way. As much as I love the High Republic, I don't think it's going to be an important part of the Star Wars canon until that music gets stuck in our minds. They need to re-record that music. It's kind of MIDI sequenced out. It sounds a little fake on the audiobook, and okay, that's fine. It's an audiobook. They need to get an orchestra in there. They need to record that music. They need to release the soundtrack. Disney, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to listen. I am your guy, and I'm not alone. So please, give us that music. I'm so grateful for all the Star Wars you give us, but I want that music. I want it. So I'm looking forward to it, Disney. And hey, while we're talking about it, Disney, one more thing that I am looking for. Where is the Andor soundtrack? I have been looking every time there's a new episode out. I'm right to the Apple Music before I even watch the episode. And I'm like, where's that Andor theme? We got Andor theme 1 through 3, the opening themes. And remember, Nicholas Bertel's doing something a little different this time with this show, which is cool because it's a different show. It should be a different side of Star Wars. He's doing something a little different. And each opening sequence, we have a main theme, but it's a little very based on the tone and the emotion of the show. And in my opinion, as each episode passes, I personally think the show's getting better and better, and I'm more invested each week, and that is reflected in the music. Boy, the last 3 themes have been beautiful. They've been amazing. I turn it on, I hear that, I'm like, I'm ready for this show. I'm in. That music gets me going. I want to be able to listen to it. I want to be able to stream it. I want to be able to buy it so I can check that out. And not to mention just the opening theme, the music that goes throughout the show is so good. When are we going to hear that? We're halfway through Andor. Boy, if they wait until all 12 episodes pass, we're going to have like a enormous album come out. Maybe we'll have several albums come out. But we're 6 episodes in. I think it's time. I think it's time to give us some music. I'll ask nicely, please, Disney, give us that Andor soundtrack. I'm waiting. But I do have to say, even without the episode, or even without the music, I am watching the episodes. And this week's episode of Andor was awesome! So much good stuff. So let's get into it. Do that thing. Cue that spoiler music. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so you don't get no spoilers. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so I don't ruin Star Wars. It's a spoiler so you can move, so you don't get no spoilers. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so I don't ruin Star Wars. All right, everyone, you have been warned. From this point out, I'm going to be talking Andor Episode 7. I may talk about other Star Wars stuff, so there's going to be spoilers everywhere. So, turn back if you haven't watched the show. If you have, let's talk about Andor. Wow, what an episode. All those people out there on the internet who are talking about Andor being boring, well, hey, you got your battles this week. You got your spaceships. You got your lasers and everything happening. And wow, what an explosive episode. The thing that I love about it, so I've been talking about the slow burn and how the last couple episodes really took their time letting us get to know Andor, letting us get to know Vel and her crew, letting us peek inside the lives of Mon Mothma, Luthen Riel, and all of the extremely deep characters on this show. It's been a very patient process that has invested us so deeply in what's going on that when everything explodes, like this episode, it is just like so powerful. So I was really happy to see that going, and I hope all the haters out there are happy now too, because it was pretty darn cool. Most of the action in this episode happens on Aldhani. When we last left Clem, let's not forget that Andor is calling himself Clem. When we last left Clem and Vel and the crew, they were all set up to attack the Imperial garrison and steal the payroll, I assume, to fund the rebellion, although we don't know for sure. But they're pulling this heist. And they've made their plans. They've traveled there. They're connected again with Lieutenant Gorn, who is kind of a disenchanted Imperial soldier who's ready to help them out to make sure the Empire falls. And everything's a go. So that's where we left off. As we get into things, they're still up on the mountain overlooking the site. Clem gets a chance to hang out with Nemik a little bit. One of my favorite characters. Nemik was nervous. He was nervous. He was like, I didn't sleep last night. We're going into this attack. I thought it would be different. I believe so deeply. Why am I scared? He was talking to Clem about that. And Clem, aka Andor, said, it'll be fine. You're going to get pumped up once the energy starts. And, at the end of all of this, you'll feel good about it. And Nemik did not seem completely convinced, but he said, I guess you're right. And I'm glad you're here. Which was, we start to see that bond between Andor and the crew really start to happen. So there's trust happening. They've gotten to know each other. It's all good. That flashes between Gorn and his setup there on the Imperial base. Now remember, last episode, he said that he was going to let his troopers go out and see this big event that's called the Eye. And so they were going to have a very empty crew there on the base. But someone who is there is Colonel Pettigar. He's a visiting colonel. He's an engineer. He's there to inspect. And he is with Commandant J-Hold, who really hates being on Aldhani. He's lived there with his family for a long time. He just wants to get out of there. So with Colonel Pettigar there, he wants a transfer. He is hanging out with Colonel Pettigar and trying to impress him and doing all the right stuff to get through. He talks to Gorn about this and, is pretty much like, I am going to do everything. I want everything to go right. And you have to feel sorry for the guy a little bit, because you think about the Empire and the people who served the Empire. Some of them were true believers. Some of them really believed that the Emperor was doing right and that was the way to rule the galaxy. But then there were a lot of Imperial troops that, hey, it was a gig, it was a job. Commandant J-Hold was a family man. He was there with his wife and his kid, and he was just trying to make ends meet. The Empire was a job, and it was a job that was out there because they ruled the universe. And is he going to take this job and take care of his family, or is he going to not be able to feed the wife and kid at the end of the day? So you have to have a little sympathy for him, I think, because he didn't seem like a true believer. On the flip side of that, he was kind of a jerk. He was, straight up. There's a scene with his wife and his kid, and they're talking about getting ready for this event, and he says some pretty rude things to his kid. He's not too nice to his wife. And okay, granted, he's stressed out. He wants this to go well, but he's a jerk. You can tell underlying he's a jerk. He cares about his family. He's trying to take care of his family, but he's a jerk at the end of the day. So there's a little bit of that sympathy in there, but there's also a little bit where I'm like, I don't know, maybe he deserves what he gets. But anyways, he's a big part of the situation. So Andor, Tamarin, Nemik, and Skeen get dressed up in Imperial gear. They go up and kind of find their way in to the Imperial garrison, and they're hanging out with the soldiers. During this time, the native peoples of Aldhani are making a trek up the mountain where the Imperial base is so they can see this event called the Eye. Now, Commandant J-Hold, Colonel Pettigar, and Lieutenant Gorn have a conversation about how they've tried to block them from coming up and how this is the last time they're going to get to do it. And you can tell that the Empire is basically taking what they want there in Aldhani and destroying the native population, which tracks with the Empire without a doubt. But it's a pretty awful thing to do, and they really show their yucky side as they're talking about this. But you do see the native peoples of Aldhani walking up the mountain, and eventually they get to the Imperial base, and they have this confrontation with Gorn. You can tell that the people from Aldhani don't like the Empire because they're destroying their planet, of course. But they know that they get to pass. So they go up, and Gorn instructs Skeen, Nemik, Tamarin, and Andor to escort them up. So they're in charge. They go along with the native peoples. Gorn releases all of the other soldiers to go and do what they do. During this time, Vel and Cinta have separated from the group. They actually get on this underwater gear and dive deep into the water and go underneath the base to get in from a different entry point. So there's some of the plan that we don't know yet that we see happening right there, and they're being a little bit sneaky about this. Now, this all leads to Andor, Skeen, Nemik, and Tamarin still in their Imperial gear, being charged with escorting Commandant J-Hold and his family into the base, along with Colonel Pettigar. So they take them into the base. Gorn stays outside. The door closes. And right away, they're on Pedagar. They're on J-Hold and his family. They've got guns on them. They surprise them. And there's a little bit of a tense moment because Pedagar pulls a gun on Nemec. And there's a little bit of a showdown. But right at that moment, Cinta comes in from a different area, kills off Pedagar, and they take J-Hold and his family. They tie up his family. They tie up the other Imperial officers that are in there, and they take J-Hold so they can get into the payroll. Pretty intense stuff, and tension is heightening. Now, before Vel and Cinta come down and help them there, they do make a point of putting this little device on the communications array that we assume is going to do something. We see Corporal Kimsey there in the communications array, talking to the troops, talking to the Air Force Base, and it's all going as planned, but this device is sitting there getting ready to go. Now, they separate and they take J-Hold and they head off to the payroll area. Before this, something kind of surprised me. Vel kind of gets cold feet. They've been working on this plan for months. They're executing it. Vel gets cold feet. She's obviously in some sort of relationship with Cinta, and she's very concerned that Cinta is going to be all right as they move on to this. And she kind of implies that they could stop, and they could stop the whole thing, which, surprised, she seems pretty hardcore up to this point. I did not expect that from her. But it does show a human side of her, which I thought was really cool. Cinta reassures her. Vel takes off with Skeen, Nemec, Tamarin, and Andor with Commandant J-Hold in tow. They leave Cinta there to keep a gun on Commandant J-Hold's wife, child, and the 2 soldiers that are working there. And you start to see this dark side of the rebellion a little bit. Because what they say to Commandant J-Hold is, look, we're going. You cooperate with us. If you do one thing to betray us, to, make sure this doesn't happen, we are going to off your wife and kid. And it seems like they're not joking about that. That is for real. Cinta is pointing that rifle right at the wife, right at the kid. And the rebellion is not afraid to get their hands dirty. Now, I was wondering last week why Luthen went and grabbed Andor in particular. It looked like he'd done some research on Andor. It looked like Andor was someone that he was going out of his way to recruit. And what I thought was that, boy, the rebellion was grabbing anyone and everyone who was done with the Empire, right? And you kind of get the sense as you watch this unfold and you see some of the morality crumble in Vel and her crew that, yeah, maybe that was right. Maybe they are taking anyone who's willing to get their hands dirty to make this happen. And can you blame them? You have to wonder. I mean, the Empire was doing wrong, but they weren't just going to say, okay, rebellion, you don't like us, we'll just stop and go away. That wasn't what was going to happen. There was some people that were going to have to get their hands dirty in the rebellion. It's just interesting because, in the original trilogy, it was a little shinier than that. It seemed a little more noble than that. That's not what it's like here. We see that happening. Pretty intense and pretty enlightening. A different side of Star Wars that Andor is giving us. I like that. So they get to the payroll where all the money, all the credits are, and they, stop some troopers there, and they put guns on the troopers and say, you have to help us They use J-Hold's hand to open up the gates and get into all the credits, and all of them are starting to load those credits into a transport there in the facility. They've got all the Imperial guards working for them. They're all doing it, and it looks like hard work. These things don't look light, right? They're going pretty hard. This goes for a while. It's pretty intense. Andor's getting the ship ready, and everything's going good. But at that point, remember the device that was on the communications array? It kicks in, it blocks all communications, and Corporal Kimsey smells something funny with this. He says, that's not right, something's going wrong. He doesn't know what it is, but he tries to get in touch with Commandant J-Hold. Doesn't happening. He tries to get in touch with the vault where the money is being held. It's not happening. He gets an alert that the vault is being broken into. He can't get in touch with anyone. So he, gets his troopers, gets the TIE fighters in the air, and heads down to the vault. When he gets there, it's pretty tense. A little bit before he arrives, Lieutenant Gorn gets there. He tells Commandant J-Hold that he is working with these folks, and he says some sort of great line, something like, boy, after 7 years of working for you, I deserve this. It's a really redemption sort of line, and you really see that he is giving something of himself that I think is pretty cool. But once Kimsey and his troops get there, things light up. They see that this is not going right. J-Hold doesn't look too good. He's all covered with sweat and he looks ragged, and they see right through it. A firefight ensues and things get intense. They're trying to get the last bit of money on board. They're trying to get the ship going. And J-Hold seems like he has a heart attack or something, because he kind of passes out. He hits the floor. One of the soldiers takes out Gorn. Skeen takes out Kimsey and a lot of his troops. Tamarin goes to help Vel and gets shot and killed. A soldier attacks Andor on the ship. He almost doesn't make it, but Nemik comes in and shoots the trooper that's attacking Andor. It's a pretty intense battle. At the end of it, Andor pilots the ship, gets away with Skeen, Vel, and Nemik, and they shoot out of there. Now, this is not your traditional ship. The ship goes through this tube of sorts, and it just takes off flying. Andor hits the gas, and they are flying out. Now, unfortunately, when this happens, this was so sad. Nemik is one of my favorite characters. The big loads of money fly and crush Nemik in the ship. He's between these two huge things, and he's messed up. The ship's flying. There's all this pressure. They can't get it off him. Once they get out of there, the ship hits the air. Skeen and Vel pull that out of there. He's like, I can't feel my legs. Things are going really intense, and it looks like he's not going to make it, which is messed up. Nemik's so cool. Why would we do this? But he's pretty messed up, but they need him because he's the only one that can plot their course out of there. During this time, the Eye event has happened. The sky is lighting up with all these amazing things shooting through the sky. Everyone is watching it, but the ship is out in it. And it's dangerous because it seems like there's these kind of intense light laser type things going on. It's a beautiful, beautiful scene, by the way. This is worth watching. This Eye event, I can see why they were all going to watch it. Why the Imperial soldiers wanted to see it. It's so cool. But anyways, Nemik is messed up, and they need him to plot a course. So Vel gets a medical stimulant and just stabs him in the chest with it. He wakes up enough to plot the course, and it's pretty intense because now TIE fighters are coming and they're trying to attack the ship. And Nemec says, climb. And so right away, Andor has to take the ship. It goes straight up, and you see all the TIE fighters chasing him, but they're getting taken out because all of these things are flying through the air, all these laser things, and it takes out the TIE fighters. Nemec says, oh, fly this way, and Andor would make a sharp turn, and Nemec plots them out of the eye, which is pretty amazing. But once they get out and they're in space, Andor's like, I need coordinates, I need numbers, so I know where to fly to. And Nemec is just done. Skeen wants to take him to a doctor who is part of the plan. Vel wants to go on and fly back to the rebellion and go on. Skeen's like, you can't do that. He saved our lives. Nemec's one of us. We need to take care of him. Vel says, no, we need to finish the mission. Andor says, I'm flying. We're taking Nemec to the doctor. So they go down and they land and they get Nemec into this weird doctor. He's got like 4 arms. I do have to point out, it was pretty bad, like effects. It was obviously a guy with 2 arms and like somebody standing behind him with 2 arms coming through. But whatever. This doctor is taking care of Nemec and trying to get him good to go. Vel stays there with him. Skeen and Andor sit outside and talk about where they're at. Now, Skeen seems pretty skeevy at this point. He asks Andor, how much money you think is in there? I think there's about 80 million. What do you think of 40 million each? And he proposes to Andor that they leave. Leave Vel and Nemec there. Forget about the rebellion. Just get in the ship. Skeen knows a place where they can go and lay low, split the money, go their own ways, and profit from this whole thing. It's interesting because it kind of gets under the skin of Andor, but you're not sure why. But Skeen pushes, and out of nowhere, Andor just offs him. He pulls out a gun, shoots him. Skeen's gone. He's out of the equation. Now, my first thought is that Andor is upset that Skeen is trying to, go backsided and take away what the rebellion needed. Right away, I was thinking of Andor as the patriot. He's the hero here. He's making sure that the rebellion gets what they fought for, right? That was what I thought. But then he walks inside. As he walks inside, Nemec is dying and passes away, and the doctor pulls up a blanket over him. So it's just Andor and Vel. And then Andor pulls the gun on Vel. I was shocked. I was truly shocked. And he says, hey, I'm taking the money I was promised and I'm leaving. And you can take the rest and do whatever you want with it, but I'm out. And so Vel is pretty upset. And there are some words, but she says, hey, before you go, you have to take this. You have to take Nemec's journal. Now, this is pretty deep because remember, Nemec wrote all his theories, all his conspiracy theories, all of his thoughts about the rebellion and the Empire. And she tries to give it to Andor. Andor's like, no way, I don't want it. Just take it. She says it was Nemec's last wish. He wants you to have it. So she gives it to him. And cutscene. That kind of blew my mind. I honestly thought Andor was going to be the hero, but he was just taken off. He was just serving himself. Job was done. He was out of there. I wonder how the journal's going to affect him. I want to say that it may have an impact on him. It sounded like there were some pretty deep thoughts in there. He had a connection with Nemec. I think it's going to make a difference. I really want to read that journal. Disney, if you want to publish that, I'm going to buy it. You should do it. But anyways, I think Andor, when he reads it, it's going to make a difference. And I think we're going to see that in the next episode. After we cut out from Vel and Andor, we flash really quickly between a few supporting characters. We go to the ISB, and everything is up in arms over this rebellion attack. They are pulling the troops together. Something's going to happen big with the ISB in the next episode. Just a quick scene to let us know that they know and they're mad. We flash right away to Mon Mothma making a presentation in the Senate that she's obviously worked pretty hard on, and everyone ignores her and starts looking at their data pads and actually starts leaving while she's talking, which obviously bothers her a little bit, but she eventually just picks up her data pad and sees that what's going on and why that happens, and you flash away from her. We end up back with Luthen, still at the shop. He's trying to sell this lady something that is kind of a funny-ish type of scene, but someone else says, hey, do you have anything from Aldhani? There was just a big rebel attack there. And Luthen says, oh, goes back, let me check. He gets back there and you can tell he's relieved. He can see that it happened. It sounds like they made it work, and he's one happy guy. So it felt to me like that was the end of the second arc. First arc was the first 3 episodes. Second arc was the second 3 episodes. And I think we'll move in a slightly different direction next week. Things are ramping up. I'm guessing we've got 2 more arcs left. It seems like 3 episodes is what they're looking at, which seems like kind of like a movie. It seems like these are 4 movies, right? I don't know, but I'm really excited to see how it goes and see if Andor just takes off, if Luthen tracks him down, learn more about the ISB and what they're doing, see Mon Mothma's evolution a little bit more. There's so much to go. And so much has happened. I can't believe it's only been 6 episodes. Things are getting intense. I cannot wait for episode 7. Let me know what you think of that episode. If you want to leave something down in the comments, or you want to send me a message to chip@chippoasmusic.com. I want to know. Intense episode. I can't wait for episode 7. Everyone, it is time for the question of the week. This one is going to go right back to the idea that I was talking about at the top of the show. I mentioned Yoda's connection to music. During his time on Dagobah, he used that blistle to play music to help him center, to be one with the Force, and maintain his mental health while he was hiding there on Dagobah. Now, my theory is that this is something the Jedi do. I've gone totally in a different direction on this. A few weeks ago in episode 4, I was saying no characters in the Star Wars universe do music, listen to music, because we don't see it. I'm making some assumptions now. I think the Jedi learn and play music during their time as Padawans as a form of their training, and it's something they take on with them when they become Jedi Knights to help them center in the Force. This makes sense to me. Yoda did it. Jedi did it. So my question to you this week. I mentioned Obi-Wan and his time on Tatooine. He had the most similar situation to Yoda as all of the Jedi that I know. So here's the question. What instrument did Obi-Wan Kenobi play? It's a thought-provoker right there. Now, like I said, we saw during the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, we didn't see any instruments At least I didn't. Maybe I missed something. I need to go back and watch those episodes where we're hanging out in Obi-Wan's hut there on Tatooine, right? And see if he does something like that. I don't know, but I want to see what you think. I said maybe he plays piano, but that's kind of ridiculous. He didn't have a piano on Tatooine. What instrument did he play? What instrument does Obi-Wan Kenobi play? And how does he use that to center himself in the Force? I want to know. Tell me, please. You can send me a message on any of the socials. You can find me at facebook.com/ChipBoazMusic. You can find me at instagram.com/ChipBoaz. You can find me at twitter.com/ChipBoaz, or you can find me at tiktok.com/ChipBoaz. Send me a message. Let me know what you think. Of course, you can always email me at chip@chipboazmusic.com. Send me a message and let me know what you think. I'm so curious. Thank you for hanging out with me this week, everyone. Boy, between all these revelations, it was a pretty exciting week in Star Wars. I encourage you, please subscribe to the channel so that you can continue to get all the Star Wars content, as well as check out my music. I would love it if you did that. You want to dive a little deeper? Look down for the link below and you can join the Boaz Brigade. I give you some goodies and we keep in touch on a regular basis, and you hear about all the exciting things I have going on. Everything from new videos to live performances and more. So please join the Boaz Brigade and spend some extra time hanging out with me. If you get a chance, send me an email to chip@chipboazmusic.com. Let me know what you think about the show. If you want to just talk Star Wars, talk music, let me know, and I would love to hear from you. We'll be back next week to talk Andor Episode 7 and more, I'm sure. So I look forward to seeing you then, everyone. Have a great week. May the Force be with you. Thanks for grooving with me.